Welcome once again to a segment I've decided to call I've Got Mail, because I couldn't think of anything snappier. 'Tis the season for primaries, and New Hampshire's is coming up very quickly, which happens to be the state that I live in. So I've been getting these flyers in the mail for potential Republican candidates that are running. One of them caught my eye. She reminds me of a congresswoman who is in the news quite often. And I thought to myself, oh goody, New Hampshire's getting a version. That's gonna be fun. So, let me introduce everybody to Karoline Leavitt. Now, I'm gonna go over this flyer and another one that she sent. It's a lot, but you're gonna see a particular theme. Karoline Leavitt is running for the U.S. Congress. Yes, the United States Congress. And her talking points are probably going to sound pretty familiar to you. If you are familiar with, look at what she's wearing and how she has her hair and everything. You know who she's trying to emulate. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm pretty sure. But you know what? I shouldn't judge a book by its cover. We should read through this. We should read through this and see what her talking points are. Okay? That seems fair. Big government refuses to get their greedy hands off our hard-earned tax dollars. Enough is enough. I'm tired of seeing the government railroad small family businesses like my own. Oh yes, similar to a Marjorie Taylor Greene, she has a family that has businesses in the state. Washington is overflowing with spineless establishment hacks hell-bent on bankrupting our country. End the socialist spending spree and send in a true conservative outsider like me. Okay, so good. She got in her socialism talking point. That's terrific. Conservative outsider. No previous political experience. I don't exactly know what socialist spending spree she would be talking about. Is she talking about the stimulus bills? Does she not understand that there's a lot of programs she's probably going to tell me she likes that could be counted as socialism? I guess we'll read on to find out. The radical left want to take away our guns. I say try to come and take it. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay, so I have to get something through people's heads right here, right now. There is always going to be a portion of people in the United States that would like to just ban all guns. I have news for them. It ain't happening. I know that the right thinks that it's just around the corner, that it's just gonna happen one of these days. It's not. I'm sorry, this is the United States. It's just not going to happen. And I'm not talking about that in the, oh, it could never happen here sense. Like, the logistics of it will never make sense. It's just not feasible. That's the reason why anybody with half a brain and a little bit of logic on their side understands that that is a non-starter. That is the reason why they talk about gun rights or restrictions. They talk about point of sale. They talk about things that they'd want to pass as laws. They never talk about taking away your goddamn guns. And to be completely honest with you, the only people who would be at risk of having their guns taken away, even under the new gun laws that they placed in, are likely mentally disturbed or violent. So, are you saying that that's the voter base you're going for, Karoline? I don't know if that's necessarily a great idea. Here's another little thing you might want to know. The reason that the left, writ large, is not going to take away your guns is because they also have guns. You've heard of the NRA, but have you ever heard of the SRA? The Socialist Rifle Association? It exists. Granted, it's not nearly as large as the NRA, but it is very much real, as is Redneck Revolt, Pink Pistols, the National African American Gun Association, the Liberal Gun Club, the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, and Black Guns Matter, which I literally just looked up a Salon article about 6 gun groups that aren't for, like, the right wing. Some of those clubs having tens of thousands of members. So, no, the left wing actually isn't all that interested in taking away your guns because they, 1, understand that it's not feasible, 2, understand that they'll never do it, 3, understand that gun lobbies are just too powerful to even get anything through, even if they were in power, and 4, own guns themselves. So, you can stop that talking point. It's pointless. Also, I remind you, this is the party talking about not infringing on your right to bear arms that is perfectly fine with infringing upon your rights to bodily autonomy, self-actualization, determining your own gender, determining what your kids can learn in school, determining what books you're allowed to read, freedom shit. Isn't it just fascinating that the same people that are constantly telling you that you need your guns to stop tyranny are also the ones constantly proposing tyrannical legislation? It's weird, right? It's almost like it's planned that way. Big tech wants to muzzle any conservative voice they can. I know this firsthand. They don't want to hear our voices because they know we will not comply. We must stand up to the big tech puppets who want to silence us and destroy the meaning of truth. So, fun fact, during the recent Meta/Facebook hearings that were taking place, we found out that the algorithm actually prefers conservatives and their talking points because it creates more engagement. So the silencing that they feel is mostly when some of them decide to go real off-rail. That, by the way, is a business decision. You know how you said businesses and how the government needs to stop getting involved with businesses? What do you think the government interjecting themselves into the policies of media corporations is? Karoline? But yeah, sites especially like Facebook actually make preferential treatments towards conservatives. So, and we don't talk apparently that much about the fact that there's a lot of people that are on the left, socialists, communists, and all sorts of people like that also get censored. It's time to fight back. Join Karoline and show the radical liberals you can't mess with our freedom by taping this flag to your door or window. You might be saying, what do you mean, this flag? Oh, don't worry, there's a back. Look at that. Hey, socialists, rhinos, and career politicians. Don't tread on me. That's right. She's got a don't step on Sneck flag on the back here. It's great, right? Anyway, I got that with, obviously the Karoline for Congress, Live Free or Die. I was trying to figure out if this was paid for by the GOP, and it is not. It is apparently paid for by Karoline for Congress, and we'll go to her website in a minute because I'm just fascinated by this. But I did, in the meantime, get this other thing, which I have to say isn't any more encouraging. So this is, they have a little picture of her standing with some people who I'm guessing are veterans. And then there's this thing underneath. Her statement, I'm a born and raised Granite Stater who worked in President Trump's White House to put the American people first and take on the corrupt liberal media. In Congress, I will stand up and stop radical liberals from destroying our conservative New Hampshire values. So a couple things I'd like to explain. Political outsider Karoline Leavitt apparently worked in the White House. Also, conservative New Hampshire values. Okay, I've lived here for most of my life. If you actually explain to most people in the Granite State what conservatives actually want, which is basically a state-run social system, so that everybody is exactly the way the state wants them to be, there would be a revolt. Live free or die does not mean appeal to tradition. New Hampshire is actually a very purple state. There are towns where literally half and half voted Trump and Biden in the 2020 election. In the same year that New Hampshire voted for Biden, we also voted by an overwhelming majority to re-elect Chris Sununu, a Republican, to the governorship. This state doesn't really have an idealistically pure objective, and if the idea is to shut up all the people coming up with new ideas and theories, that doesn't really seem to share the value system of the live free or die state. Because, and I think I really need to explain this at this point, and maybe this is my own opinion, but conservatives are not libertarians. And trust me, libertarians have their problems. Not gonna lie. But conservatives are definitely not libertarians. Because literally any time somebody comes along and says, hey, I'd like to be able to make choices on my own, their first thought is, well, now hold on there. I think that I should have a say in that. Which is the reason why they constantly want power, so that they can do it on a state or national level. Karoline is ready to keep fighting to make America energy independent. Karoline will open American energy to drive down the gas price and end reliance on foreign oil from countries that hate our values. So basically every place, including the United States. Okay, do you know what would really help in driving down gas prices? Renewable energy. You know, those windmills, and solar panels, and hydrogen, and the nuclear power plants. That would help. Electric vehicles. That would drive down the cost of gas pretty significantly because there wouldn't be as much demand, and it would make us more energy independent because we wouldn't need as much gas. That would help. I wonder how you feel about that. Maybe we'll find out today. I bet I know. Secure our border. Karoline will end Biden's open border policies, finish President Trump's wall, and stop the flow of Chinese fentanyl and criminals entering our country. She is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's absolutely Marjorie Taylor Greene. And yeah, she's in New Hampshire, and she's worried about the southern border. Is she worried about the northern border with Canada? Considering we're much closer to that, and considering that, like, the terrorists on 9/11 came across that border, not the southern border? Nope. No, because the Canadians are fine. They're all white. Right. They're all right. It's those people down south that are the problem. You know, they've got darker intentions. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Chinese fentanyl. We really need to get a lot of buzzwords in here. That's great. Criminals entering our country. Why even worry about the criminals entering our country? We've got plenty of them here. About the wall. They were never going to build it. Trump had 4 years to build that stupid fucking wall, and he got 2 miles done. It's not happening. It's not happening. Give it fucking up. Hey, Karoline. Hey, Karoline. You know what I would call a large federal government project that seeks to take land from a bunch of different states so that they can build a giant wall? Socialism. That feels like a social program. Walls. Walls. And what? Border? If it's not an open border, that means we're going to need border patrol? If the federal government is hiring border patrol agents for individual states at the border, that's what do you call that? That feels like, socialism, doesn't it? It's funny how they love socialism when it's like for police and the military and border patrols and walls. It's just the socialism that would help you get affordable medicine that's a problem. Isn't that interesting? I think it is. Education, not indoctrination. As a product of New Hampshire's public and private schools, Karoline knows how important it is for parents to have a voice in their children's education. She will fight to keep politics out of the classroom. That's laughable. Hi, I'm a politician that wants to make new rules for classrooms so that we can keep politics out of classrooms. As a product of New Hampshire's public and private schools, I keep wondering how much of each. Karoline knows how important it is for parents to have a voice in their children's education. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they also run the educational system. Like, if a parent decides that all they want their kid to learn is about what candies are the tastiest, we don't go with that. If you decided that you wanted to, I don't know, keep politics out of the classroom, maybe we could do so by not having politicians talk about how they want to introduce new policies and bans on what people can talk about in the classroom. Your party is banning hundreds of books from public schools. Is that not politics introducing itself into the classroom? Oh, no, you see, here's the thing. If the federal government decides to ban a bunch of books and tell people what they are and are not allowed to say in schools, that's not politics in the classroom. That's just good old American values. But if somebody were to, while in the classroom, say that they were a trans person, that would inherently be political, because people's identity is political now. Same logic that would say, well, I'm a straight cis white male, so saying that anywhere in a classroom would now be political. If that makes sense to you, have fun on the crazy train. Protect small businesses. Karoline knows the importance of stopping new taxes and limiting government overreach on small business owners. She will oppose new taxes and cut regulations holding back Americans from prosperity. How are you going to stop new taxes if you want to build that wall, Karoline? How are you going to make America energy independent if you're cutting taxes, Karoline? Don't you know that's going to cost money? Also, how is the United States going to be energy independent without the federal government directly intervening in the energy industry? Like, American oil has a lot that they could do to drill more if they really wanted to have a larger piece of the pie. But it's not really profitable for them to do that because OPEC's there. The back of this is great. Courageous, homegrown, conservative. This gives you all the information that you need in the pictures. So up here you can see her standing next to Donald Trump. And then you can see a screen on the back just for the persecution complex that Republican Karoline Leavitt censored by Twitter. So there's that. Her family businesses, and then her holding a gun in the background, and also in the red blazer, of course. So enough of looking through her stuff. Let's go to her website. Okay, so let's take a look at this and see what we're looking at. Okay, there's that. Individuals may donate up to $5,800. Ooh, the suggested 100 there. Okay, America, freedom, and New Hampshire first. This narrative is getting so confusing. You can't put all three of those first. America, I guess, is first. Freedom is second, and New Hampshire is third. I don't know, guys. Okay, let's just look at about Karoline. This is fascinating. So she's running for the 1st Congressional District. She went to St. Anselm College in Manchester, played women's softball, founded the St. Anselm Broadcasting Club. She worked at WMUR, that's one of the local news stations. New Hampshire Institute of Politics. And in 2018, she had an application to the White House, and she was accepted. She served as assistant press secretary in the press office, preparing Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany for high-pressure briefings. I think she learned a lot of her, style and look from McEnany. You can kind of see right here, this is McEnany, and then that's Karoline, so you can see that there's definitely, she learned a lot from her. Following the 2020 election, I worked on Capitol Hill as the communications director for Congresswoman and House Republican Conference Chair Elise Stefanik. Oh my god. I led the Congresswoman's messaging as we fought against President Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and the House Democrats' radical agenda. Guys, if you think that Biden and Pelosi are radical liberals, oh man, I got to introduce you to an actual radical liberal sometimes. I could no longer sit back and watch as our conservative principles that make America the greatest country in the world, and New Hampshire the best state in the Union, fall under attack. Now more than ever, New Hampshire needs a strong, bold, conservative warrior to serve as a firewall between the radical, power-hungry Democrats in Washington and our freedom-loving state. Yeah, you know what Republicans in New Hampshire would really care about? A border wall 1,000 miles away. Issues! Let's see what she believes in. This is going to be great. All right, low taxes, less regulation, more economic freedom, yada, yada, yada. Cut taxes. I mean, the problem is that, like, everyone always says, I'd love to cut taxes, but honestly, we could take taxes away entirely, but you'd start to really complain about what you lose in the process. Like, you could say, I could cut the entire DOT, and they'd be like, yay, we save money from the DOT, and I got money in my... Yeah, okay, great. What happens when you have a pothole in front of your house? We could cut the fire department. What happens when you have a fire? Law and order. I love how every time they start complaining about socialism, the next thing that they talk about is how we need more money for cops. New Hampshire's law enforcement officers are the best in the country. To be fair, New Hampshire's police department is less egregious than most states in the Union, so that's not a totally inaccurate statement, and they are fully deserving of our respect and support. The ones that do a good job, yes. We must continue to provide them with more resources and funding, not less. She just said that she wanted to cut taxes, and now she's figuring out where she wants to put more federal funds. I will fiercely fight against the radical defund the police movement, which is an existential threat toward the security of our communities and the safety of our families. Karoline, defunding the police would be a rail against socialism and would cut taxes. And there are even police that think that the idea of moving resources away from the police department, like for mental health services, would be good for them. Did you talk to any of them? I will protect qualified immunity, listen to our police officers on the issue of crime above all, and always support the thin blue line. Basically, you want a police state. Boy, when I think about freedom, I think about police states. Oh, by the way, the very idea of law and order is completely antithetical to the idea of freedom. Just thought I'd throw that out there for you. Strong borders. The messaging is amazing here. The United States of America is a nation of laws, except when we commit crimes, at which point, screw it, don't tread on me. Wait, hold on, Karoline, wait. Don't tread on me! Don't tread on Snack! This includes our immigration laws. A strong nation must have strong borders, period. President Biden and his administration have failed to uphold that basic principle. Okay, fucking Christ, man. Yeah, no, nations need to have strong borders, except for all the nations that don't bother. And they're still nations. We put an invisible line in the sand, folks, so if we don't maintain that invisible line, oh boy, it's gonna be chaos. I got bad news for everybody. If your nation and the fate of your nation is predicated on patrolling an invisible line, because if you lose that invisible line, your country is destroyed, your country was not very strong to begin with. Deadly drugs are pouring into our country and poisoning Granite State communities that have already suffered from the opioid crisis. Dangerous criminals such as MS-13 gang members and coyotes are engaging in horrific episodes of human trafficking. Yeah, the thing that New Hampshire really needs to worry about is MS-13. And I know the next thing that you're going to say, but Nathan, it's a national issue. But I thought it was about the states' rights. I thought that the individual states have to work for themselves. Are you saying that the federal government and nation are more important than the rights of the individual states? That doesn't fit with the snack thing. We need more cops and more border patrol agents. Don't step on Snack! It doesn't make any sense. I will fight to end the Biden border crisis. Oh yeah, it just started. I will fight to end the Biden border crisis. Oh yeah, it just started. Second Amendment. Our founding fathers understood the crucial importance of firearms to guarantee the individual right of all Americans to defend themselves and their property. The individual right to guns, by the way, was not actually insured until like 2008. I know that Democrat-backed attempts to burden legal gun owners with mountains of paperwork and licensing requirements only make it more difficult for law-abiding citizens to purchase and own a firearm and does nothing to prevent criminals from acquiring. Oh my god. Oh my god, literally is that the argument? Look, we don't want to have to do a ton of paperwork so that we can have a gun. Like, how dare we ask people to fill out paperwork Shouldn't we just get the gun? It's a real burden. It doesn't prevent criminals from acquiring them. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, there's quite a few mass shootings in the nation where people abided by the laws right up until the point that they decided to go on a shooting spree. One of the reasons was probably not to trigger any kind of red flags that would make people think that they were doing something wrong. The shooter in Uvalde was among them. Speaking of which, I will oppose misleading red flag laws and fight against Democrats' efforts to run firearm and ammunition manufacturers out of business through endless litigation and overregulation. I mean, actually, there is a point where you would think gun manufacturers themselves would come up with policies that would keep their guns out of the hands of potential dangerous shooters, because they wouldn't want to have their product associated with, like, dead kids. You'd think they would do that. Also, red flag laws are something that Trump even proposed. And it shocked Democrats because they usually don't bother bringing them up. The Second Amendment clearly guarantees the right to keep and bear arms for a well-regulated militia, Karoline. People keep skipping over that part of the Second Amendment, and the federal government shall never pass legislation that makes the exercise of that right more difficult. No! They can do that. They can. That's the regulation part of the Second Amendment. The right to keep and bear them shall not be infringed. Paperwork you have to go through to prove that you are capable of being part of the militia, you know, that well-regulated militia, that they can still do. Here we go. Election integrity. Secure elections are vital to the strength and security of our democracy, and I will oppose any and all Democrat-based attempts to undermine them. I'm a little scared as to where this is going. Our elections can and should be both secure and accessible. Yeah, well, the secure part is apparently a thing. The accessibility part is indeed an issue. During the pandemic, they started this policy where they were basically doing like one polling place per district. But in some of those districts, there are like millions of people that now have to access that one polling place. This was a problem and led to long lines of like 8 hours where people had to wait to vote. But again, this is something that Republicans were actually perfectly fine with because those heavily populated districts were mostly democratically held. Those were blue areas. So make it as difficult as possible. Despite false and misleading media coverage, states like Georgia, Florida, and Texas have shown that the right policies can make it easier for all eligible voters to cast their vote, while also ensuring that only eligible voters are counted. They already do that, and what do you mean, Texas? When I was just talking about the accessibility, I was talking about counties in Texas. I will oppose all efforts to federalize our elections. What does that mean? Do you mean that that you're opposed to getting rid of the Electoral College? Because the Electoral College does actually undermine the one person, one vote that we prefaced the whole country on. Is that what? Mandate universal mail-in voting. Oh, oppose mandating. No one's mandating. What? Show me where people are doing it. Show me where people are saying this. Politicize the Federal Election Commission. Oh, yeah. It's a good thing the Republicans aren't trying to politicize the Election Commission. And all other Democrat power grabs, like those found in H.R. 1. Right. It faced overwhelming resistance from congressional Republicans as dozens of GOP-supported restrictions on voting and ballot access are proposed in nearly every state. But that would make it more accessible, Karoline. I thought you wanted this to be more accessible. Wasn't that the point? Education. As a proud alumni of both New Hampshire public schools and Catholic private schools, hey, me too. You and me both. I want every student in New Hampshire to have the opportunity to choose their education, regardless of their zip code or economic status. Boy, that would be lovely. How you want to do that? The New Hampshire legislature's recent passage of education freedom accounts is a great first step, and I will empower our state and local governments to continue this path. Let's continue the fight, not the government or powerful teachers' unions. empowered to make the best academic decisions. This is probably about charter schools, right? Like, the general idea of being able to have the ability to choose what school you go to is nice, but it also makes your schools an industry, right? It basically creates a capitalist system for your school system. I will be a vocal and fierce advocate for demanding academic excellence and respect for parental rights in our public schools. And again, if the parents decide all they want their kids to learn is that ice cream good and frozen yogurt bad, I guess that's what we're teaching kids now. How do we lower expectations even further? Taxpayer-funded teachers should be educating, not indoctrinating. Yeah, but everything that you're talking about, as they're going to get into, is an indoctrination itself. I will continue to advocate for a ban on critical race theory and other racist, divisive ideas. Oh boy, here we go. Hey guys, did you know that teaching people that racism happened and that the policies that came out of that still have an effect on our society today makes people racist? Public schools must challenge students academically, hold them to rigorous standards, teach them to respect one another, stand for our flag, and love our country. Okay, let's just break that down real quick. Must challenge students academically. Yes, we need better educational standards because our science and math and technology and history scores compared to other countries is dismal. Hold them to rigorous standards. Again, same thing. Teach them to respect one another. Yes, even if they're gay or trans. Stand for our flag. That's nationalism, but okay. There's nothing in the Constitution or anything that's like, you're going to stand for a flag. No, that's not. And love our country. Here's the thing. History is not supposed to teach you to love your country. It's supposed to teach you what your country has done so that you can avoid the worst things that your country did and try to emphasize and encourage the best things that your country did. If you want to look at your country uncritically, if you want to say that your country is just excellent, A-OK, and anybody who's criticizing it is inherently bad, your country is doomed to failure. Your country is doomed to repeat the worst things that it has done because it refuses to teach people that it did those things. Gee, if only there were some systems in place like that taught us something critically about the problems inherent in our society that we could, I don't know, learn from after thinking about it critically. Oh boy, here we go, guys. As your next congresswoman, I will fight to abolish the Department of Education. I mean, in some ways, it's already a feckless, pointless organization, so I guess, but I believe the parent is the primary educator of the child, not the government. Basically, what she's saying is, get ready for the television to teach your kids. Because parents have to go to, work. Returning the power of education to states and localities will empower parents to have greater input and oversight into exactly what their children are being taught in the classroom. Local control of education is how we can ensure that children are not being taught lies and absurdities like this woke notion that a girl is a boy. Oh, God, we went there. But hold on, Karoline, teach them to respect one another. You put it right there. I love this idea that conservatives have that because trans people exist, it means that we're teaching everybody that all boys are now girls and all girls are now boys. No, that's not what's going on. What we're trying to explain to people is that there are cases where men or women who are biologically men or women may not actually be that. And the genitalia that they have is obfuscating who they actually are. And that if we actually just dealt with that it would actually allow people to pretty much not be constrained by a lot of these facades that we've put up in our society. Almost like, not treading on people. It's not a woke notion, by the way. That's something that's been going on for a long time. And I love that she encounters woke because it just proves to me that she doesn't really have anything new and interesting to say. Everything that she hates is going to be woke. Wait for it. Big tech free speech. Everywhere you look in our society, free speech is under attack. Yeah, howdy. I hear that there's this whole party that's trying to ban like 700 books from schools. What's that about? Radical Democrats, the liberal mainstream media, and big tech giants in Silicon Valley are attempting to silence, power, and censor conservative Facebooks. Companies like Twitter, Facebook, and Google. Oh yeah, I never see conservatives on any of those platforms, and I never see them signal boosted. Should not get to arbitrarily decide what people can and cannot say online. They don't. It's whether you violate their terms of service. Karoline, that's a private industry issue. Don't step on Snack! Don't step on Snack! Oh wait, here we go. Twitter suspended my personal account in May of 2021 for posting about my conservative beliefs. Oh god, do I even bother looking? It appears I've been released from Twitter's conservative jail. This was not an error, as Twitter claims. This was another purge in an ongoing effort to silence conservative voices. We cannot back down to... What was the offending tweet? I hadn't been paying much attention to Leavitt's candidacy until I learned she was hosting a campaign event featuring viewing of 2,000 mules for Dinesh D'Souza. I must know now what this tweet was. Boy, I'll tell you, for somebody who got censored by Twitter, she's doing a lot of tweeting. Alright, so I can't find the tweet. It's weird because it says that Twitter had done it in error and that she got out of Twitter jail, but that I can't seem to figure out what the offending tweet is, and it's not like anyone defending her put it in their articles, so I don't know. Draining the swamp. I was proud to work for President Trump to help him drain the corrupt swamp. To further that mission, I pledge to co-sponsor a constitutional amendment imposing term limits on members of Congress. Yeah, boy, it's not like the Republicans have had any time in order to do that. An overwhelming majority of Americans support congressional term limits. Yeah, and Trump and the Republicans could have gotten that done pretty easily in the first 2 years of his term. So why didn't they? Term limits will allow innovative new leaders like myself, yeah, you're very innovative, who aren't owned by lobbyists and special interest groups to pass new ideas that make our government work again. In Congress, I will also oppose earmarks and other government wasteful spending. That would be lovely until the point that it's an earmark you like. Life. Here we go. Fun. Declaration of Independence, our nation's founding document, lists the right to life as the first among inalienable rights granted to us by our Creator. Without the right to life, no other right matters. Okay, fearless pro-life advocate to defend the... Oh, so we hate women. Okay, great. Defend the lives of the unborn. The unborn aren't your voter base, Karoline. Women are a voter base. Men are a voter base. People are a voter base. The unborn don't vote. Just to clarify the Republican position these days, they care more about people who don't pay taxes and don't vote than you, the American taxpayer. See how I framed it there? Yeah. Think about that. I will also fight to codify the Hyde Amendment to guarantee a permanent ban on federal funding and subsidies for abortions. But wait, banning things? The federal government is banning things now? But Snack! Snack! What about Snack, Karoline? The Snack! As a young woman, it is also very important to me to work on expanding access to adoption for unplanned pregnancies and supporting young mothers and adoptive families. In the United States, there's tens of thousands of children that are not currently being adopted. They're just there. They're in the system. You and I pay for a lot of them. That number is going to jump up considerably as abortion access is limited in the United States. I.e., you and I are going to pay for this bullshit because people who were not ready to have kids were still told they have to have kids, which will create more wards of the state that we pay for because people who wanted to do the responsible thing were not allowed to because the government decided that they were going to get involved. Because Snack! I believe that the pro-life movement has the ability to win the hearts and minds of all Americans, but we must foster a culture of life and restore family as the bedrock of our society, like those families at the border. Oh, wait. Yes, let's have the government intervene and decide our family planning for us. That seems non-snaky. Family is the bedrock of our society. Hey, yeah, you know what would really help with that? If we raise the minimum wage so that maybe we would only have to have a one-income household so that someone could stay with the kids. Maybe we could promote parental leave for fathers and mothers. That would be great. Neonatal care, maybe universal pre-K. How about school lunch program? Ooh, those would all be really useful. Those would really help to restore family as the bedrock of our society. Maybe we don't try to ostracize people who are gay or trans, or maybe who have different religious backgrounds or racial backgrounds, you know, stigmatize them and tell people that they are the cause of all of their problems. That would help, because a lot of those people have families that you're trying to pull them away from. Maybe this hyperbolic nationalism that's driving people from their families would be something we should look into. Healthcare and drug costs. For far too long, we have been paying far too much for prescription drugs because government regulations prevent patients and health plans from negotiating better deals on the open market. What? Oh, yeah, man. You know, if the government gets out of, healthcare, then the private industries are obviously going to want you to pay less for their drugs. I mean, that's what companies love to do. They love to take a loss on drugs. Drug companies and special interest groups are gaming the system to keep patients in the dark about how much they will owe for their care and drive out competition through unfair practices. That's not completely untrue. I'll give her that. Our senior citizens have been particularly hit hard. Yes, as they pay far more than they should for Medicare Part B and Part D. Under President Trump, the federal government finally took action to increase price transparency and force Big Pharma to play by the rules, but more work is needed. And frankly, probably the most useful thing that the administration did. But again, the fact that they don't get around to saying maybe we should have a universal healthcare program because the Big Pharma is running the show is just bonkers. I will push the Biden Department of Health and Human Services to reinstitute President Trump's successful reforms and drive down prescription drug prices. Okay, so you want the federal government to intervene to lower prescription drug prices. That sounds like something I saw recently. What's that term? Obamacare was a disastrous policy that sent premiums sky high for millions of Americans. Yeah, because it wasn't a universal health care plan. It was just like, let's make sure everybody has insurance, but they'll pay for the insurance because it's still a privatized system. That's why Obamacare failed, because it wasn't a national health care service. We can't allow President Biden to pass similar policies, especially when so many Granite Staters are still recovering from the economic effects of the pandemic. The economic effects of the pandemic. Oh my God, this goes on for so long. Energy independence, we've already talked about this. We cannot continue to leave our nation at the mercy of countries who hate us, allowing them to turn off the tap anytime they choose. Okay, so renewable energy. I will fight to restore our energy independence and again make the United States a leading exporter of energy, fueling our allies and placing economic pressure. Whoa, 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 whoa. No, Carolyn, what? American oil industries can't even produce enough oil for the United States. Now you want them to export it to other countries? How does that make us energy independent? I thought the whole point would be just to have the American oil industries just provide the oil to America. But obviously they're not going to do that because they make more money on oil when they send it over to Europe, because European oil prices make ours look pathetically cheap. Strong military combating China. Peace through strength is the best foreign policy approach to maintain a ready military posture and deter aggression from our enemies. We already spend like over 50% of our national budget on the military. So I'm going to guess she's saying that that's not enough. The freedoms we enjoy as Americans are made possible by the incredible sacrifices of our men and women in uniform. We must continue to increase funding for our military so our brave warriors have the best training and equipment to keep America free and safe. America faces urgent threats posed by communist China. They are engaging in espionage on our college campuses, infiltrating our institutions. A lot about China, not so much about Russia. and the disinformation campaign that they waged on those social media platforms that she has such a problem with. Censoring our free speech and stealing our jobs. Yeah, censoring our free speech, there is actually some truth to that, because you might notice that a lot of media companies specifically censor out anything that might be about homosexual relationships, because China will have a problem with it when it gets to their media. So, we could actually fight back against China really easily by promoting more same-sex relationships in movies. That would help. I will always be a vocal advocate for holding China accountable, especially for the COVID-19 virus. See, the thing about it is that I'm not against the idea of holding China accountable for their role in the COVID-19 pandemic. I am against the idea that saying anybody who's Asian somehow had a role in it. Stop that. Please. And for that matter, let's take a moment for the scientists that were in China that tried to tell the government that there is going to be a problem and we should really look at it. Stand up for the people that did try, Veteran care. New Hampshire has the third highest capacity of veterans in the country, and I will fight to ensure every single one of those heroes has access to fully funded community care, regardless of disability. Okay, great. So you wouldn't have had any problem with the PACT Act. To be fair, the Department of Veteran Affairs is not good. I don't know why. I've had people in my family that are veterans try to deal with the VA, and they are a hot mess most of the time, so that would be great. The problem is that when actual legislation comes around to support veterans, the Republicans don't seem that interested in passing it anymore. I just mentioned the PACT Act. They want to play politics with this stuff now for vendettas and crap. I also look forward to working with our veterans to increase awareness of the tragedies of veteran suicide and homelessness. Yes, that would be the kind of thing where we needed to put more money into, mental health services for veterans and maybe job placement when they get home. The problem is that we usually will spend money when they're fighting. We will not when they get home. We are very bad at that. It speaks volumes for our society. Infrastructure and rural broadband. Ooh, I might actually agree with her on something. Let's find out. As Democrats in Congress use infrastructure as a buzzword to slam through their partisan priorities. Maybe not. I will work to refocus the conversation on improving our bridges, fixing our roads. That's infrastructure. That is infrastructure, though, Karoline. I don't care what you think the partisan priorities are. Infrastructure is not a buzzword. This is infrastructure. Improving bridges, fixing roads, investing in communities, creating good-paying jobs. Creating good-paying jobs along the way is mostly an outgrowth of that. You reinvest in your society, and then hopefully you will end up with good-paying jobs. Here's the thing, though. That sounds like the government do thing, and then you reap benefit from it. I will also fight to increase access to rural broadband across our state, especially in the most rural communities. In this modern digital age, when so many work and learn online, there is no excuse for limited internet access to any of our communities. Well, at least she got that one right. Yes, I believe that the internet should be treated as a utility. I would love to be able to see more local broadband networks that are not from, the large broadband companies. Actually, creating, community broadband networks to provide an option from, the large telecom companies has proven very useful in places where they've done it. I think it was Chattanooga that had a program where they actually told people that they could sign up for a localized, essentially, broadband network, and they found more reliable and faster internet speeds and much better customer service and lower rates. I would love to see that. The internet is vital. Opioid crisis. Like many Grand Staters, I sadly know far too many people who tragically lost their lives to the scourge of drug abuse. While improvements on this front have been made in recent years, we must acknowledge the reality our state continues to suffer from the opioid epidemic. The Biden administration and Democrat members of Congress are adding fuel to this fire by reopening our border to human traffickers, drug dealers, and cartels. The opioid crisis was going on during the Trump administration. So, what? Are you saying that he didn't secure the borders? I will fight to re-implement the successful deterrent policies of the Trump administration, build our wall, and increase coordination. So victims receive the preventive resources and treatment they need. You notice that back in the day, like in the 80s, when cocaine was a big issue and crack was something people were worried about, that was something that was used a lot by minority communities, and they needed to pull up their pants and take personal responsibility. The opioid crisis, which affects a lot of white people, we need to help them. We need to expend federal funds to help them. It's a good thing that none of this is a systemic issue that we have to worry about. It's a good thing that we don't have to talk about that with something like critical race theory. I'm glad that the federal government is apparently doing all of these things and putting out all of this money to help with these programs. I'm so glad we don't have to worry about snack. She also apparently wrote an op-ed in the Washington Examiner back in January about transgender ideology, trampling Title IX, which is basically about transgender athletes and women's sports. I have to say it's kind of fascinating for me when it comes to women's sports, because this is the first time I think I've ever seen conservatives actually give a shit about women's sports in general, and it's really only just so that they can try to ostracize somebody else in their society, because Lord knows that it's not like the Matt Walshes of the world were sitting down to watch the WNBA game before any of this. As a woman, former NCAA Division II athlete, and Generation Z American, this is personal to me. I've spent years making sacrifices and working tirelessly to achieve my athletic goals and compete at the highest level that I possibly could. It's difficult to imagine if a man had taken from me my well-earned starting position at third base on my high school or college softball team. My heart breaks for the women and girls enduring that unfair hardship right now. I'm just as good as men, but apparently not when it comes to sports. Women deserve equality. Could you compete against a biological male? No, that's discrimination. We obviously can't. We're too weak and frail. Here's what I really have to say about the female and the transgender athlete thing. Fuck you. You don't care. You don't care about women's sports. You never did. I don't care if you are a female athlete or that you had the softball thing on here. You don't actually care about women's sports. What you want is women to be in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant all damn day. And you know that that's what the trad wife sort of conservative cares about. You don't really care about women's sports. But also, this notion that, like, well, if you had biological men competing against women, they're always gonna win, is absolute bullshit. I could step into a ring with Ronda Rousey. Okay? She's a biological female. I'm a biological male. I will get my ass handed to me. That is just a fact. I will also note that there were some cases throughout history, like the Battle of the Sexes. Do any of you know how that worked out? There is not really this hard and fast policy about, what do you do when you have a man competing against a woman? Depending on what the sport is, yeah, there might be advantages and disadvantages based on biological, like, twitch muscle, but it's not a universal truth. It doesn't always work. You can't just have any man compete against any woman and just know what the outcome is going to be, especially in any sport. That's just too blatant and wide a swath to pass. But here's the deal. When I say that, it doesn't really work for the narrative that all men are this and all women are this. Even though they know that all men are not this and all women are not this. Some women could compete in men's sports and some women couldn't. But if we made that argument, then that would suggest that one woman to another woman are different and have different physiological properties to them. And that would suggest that we're not working in exactly a real hard and fast binary. But to be honest with you, I think that it's worthwhile to have a conversation about that. And it's interesting how science has been trying to look at it from a perspective of, like, all right, well, how would you classify athletes? Would it be by testosterone levels? Could you put it that way? Well, I mean, that's not even going to be a biological imperative because there are women that have really high testosterone levels. And so there would be, like, literally cisgender women that are not allowed to compete in women's sports. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. New Hampshire's trying to get their own MTG. It sounds like a terrible idea. She says she's a political outsider, but she literally worked in the Trump White House. She says she wants politics out of school, but she's trying to apparently do that by putting politics into schools. She wants to support more border patrol, more police, more military spending, wants to build a giant wall, but she doesn't like socialism. So, hey, socialist, rhino, and career politician, don't tread on me! Stop stepping on Snack! In case anyone's wondering about the 1st Congressional District, the Democratic frontrunner and the only one running is the incumbent, Chris Pappas. Just about the district. For the record, the only thing I really know about Chris Pappas is that he was fighting against the Right to Work Act, which is the thing that's trying to kill off labor unions. So good for you on that thing. I noticed that Karoline didn't actually mention anything about the Right to Work Act. I don't really know how she feels about it, but it seems to be a Republican thing to mostly kill off unions. Here is the Republican primary candidates. That's right, folks. There's so many of them. Matt Mowers actually worked on Donald Trump's 2016 campaign and was part of the transition team, so there's that. Tom Alcieri ran as a Libertarian before and was defeated in the Libertarian primary, so I'm guessing that's a non-starter if he can't even win the Libertarian nomination. There's Tim Baxter, and he's a member of the House of Representatives in New Hampshire, and so now he's running for the congressional district, so there's that. Gail Huff Brown, no information on her. Mark Kilbane, also running, all we really know. He was born in Boston. He served in the U.S. Army, bachelor's degree from West Illinois. Alright, there's that. Russell Prescott, who was a member of the New Hampshire Executive Council, previously served in the New Hampshire State Senate, vice president of R.E. Prescott Company, and mechanical engineer. Okay. Kevin Rondo doesn't even have a picture, so... And Gilead Town, who was born in Methuen, Mass., and he worked in the jewelry and watch industry. I don't know who you're supposed to vote for if you're doing that. You know what? No, actually, go back, because this guy, I love his name is Gilead Town. That's terrific. I like that he was in the jewelry and watch industry. That sounds fun. I know he's from Mass. I'm not going to hold that against him. Look at my baby boy. My baby boy looks so happy right there. I don't want Mowers. Again, it's another Trump acolyte. Like, Matt Mowers is also going to have the same problem. Son of a bartender and a construction worker, Matt Mowers grew up in a middle-class family. He's running to reaffirm American values for the next generation. And as you can probably imagine, you know what those values are. Lower taxes, American security, Constitution, Second Amendment, preventing pandemic. Oh, well, there's something. To hold China accountable for, say again, term limits, election integrity. It's the same talking points. Supporting veterans back to blue. It's the same stuff. And he's much better funded, so I don't think we're going to see Karoline Leavitt in the Congress, but Mowers isn't exactly, like, preferable, because it's the same fucking talking points over and over again. But my boy! Look at my beautiful boy! What did my beautiful boy do? Voter ID. Capitalism. I have been recording for way, way too long. So, this has been I've Got Mail. If anyone complains that I, went off on a long rant on this lady, she sent me two different things in the mail. So, you don't have the right to complain. I just bitched about the stuff that you had on your flyers and your website. The things you said. This is why I don't belong to the party anymore. It's just this bullshit over and over and over again. By the way, anytime people show you this flag, what they're basically saying is, we're going to get government out of the way so that private industries can run your life. Let's get the government out of Jeff Bezos's hair so that he can run your life for you. Because there's no thought process about how you put the power back in the hands of people and not just move the power from one large lethargic organization to another one. Don't tread on me, which is one way of saying that literally don't even criticize us. But if you know anything about me, I think that one of the fundamental tenets of the United States has to be critical analysis of your country. That you can't just say that we have to look back on history with rose-colored glasses, the bringing American traditions back. Because it just says that we're going to smooth over everything that was wrong with the country. We're going to try to return to a romanticized version of our country that never existed. Everybody was happy back then. Maybe you were, but that's not everybody. This is great for the people who are already in charge. For the people who are already in power, who already have privilege in your society. Everybody else gets shafted. But you see, if we were to talk about trying to make things more equitable for people, trying to be fair to the people that are down on the ground floor, well, that might suggest this. We can't have that. Unless, of course, it's for all of the massive government programs that they want. At which point, yeah, shell out hundreds of billions of dollars a year. It's fine. Your prophecy for the day. Be courageous, be homegrown, and wear a red blazer. Success shall follow. Oh god, this is why I'm not successful. I wore the wrong color blazer! No! No!